Starting a new job or navigating a professional environment can feel overwhelming, especially when it comes to communication. Using the right phrases at work not only helps you express yourself clearly, but also ensures that you're perceived as professional and competent.
One fundamental phrase to master is, just to clarify. This expression is invaluable when you need to ensure that all parties have the same understanding of a given topic. For example, if a project deadline is mentioned but the exact date is unclear, you might say, just to clarify, the deadline is next Friday, correct? This approach helps prevent misunderstandings and confirms details that are crucial for meeting your goals. Another useful phrase in the workplace is, could you please provide more details on this? When presented with information or tasks that lack sufficient clarity, this phrase allows you to request additional specifics. For instance, if you receive a project outline that is vague, you could ask, could you please provide more details on this? I want to ensure I fully understand what's required. This shows that you're committed to accuracy and thoroughness. When receiving feedback, whether it's positive or constructive, a respectful phrase to use is, I appreciate your feedback. This shows that you value the input and are open to improving based on it. For example, after a performance review, you might say, I appreciate your feedback. It gives me a clearer idea of areas where I can enhance my performance. Acknowledging feedback in this way demonstrates a willingness to grow and develop professionally. Delegating tasks effectively requires clarity, and a phrase like, could you please take care of this? Is both polite and direct. It communicates that you trust your colleague to handle a specific responsibility. For example, if you're overseeing a project and need someone to handle the client follow-ups, you might say, could you please take care of the client follow-ups? It's essential for keeping them updated. This phrase helps distribute the workload efficiently. Setting priorities is another critical aspect of workplace communication. Using the phrase, let's focus on this first, helps to direct attention to the most urgent tasks. For example, if there are several items on the agenda in a meeting, you might say, let's focus on this first. It's the most pressing issue we need to address. This keeps the team's efforts aligned and ensures that critical tasks are handled promptly. Once a task is completed, it's important to communicate its status clearly. The phrase, this has been completed, effectively informs others that a specific task is done. For instance, after finishing a report, you might send a message saying, the report has been completed and is ready for your review. This straightforward communication helps keep everyone updated and ensures that the project continues to move forward smoothly. Negotiating deadlines can often be necessary, and the phrase, is there any flexibility with the deadline? Allows you to explore potential adjustments without seeming unprofessional. For example, if you're working on multiple projects and a new task comes up with a tight deadline, you could ask, is there any flexibility with the deadline? I want to ensure I can deliver high-quality work. This shows that you're committed to maintaining standards while managing your time effectively. When unsure about certain details or answers, honesty is key. The phrase, I'm not sure, but I'll find out, demonstrates a willingness to seek out the necessary information. For example, if a client asks you a question that you don't immediately have an answer to, you might say, I'm not sure, but I'll find out and get back to you as soon as possible. This response assures the client that their query is being taken seriously and that you'll follow up promptly. Expressing alignment with a colleague's suggestion or decision can be done with the phrase, I'm aligned with that. This phrase helps affirm that you share the same perspective or goals. For example, if a team member suggests a new approach to a project and you agree, you could say, I'm aligned with that. It seems like a great way to proceed. This fosters teamwork and ensures that everyone is on the same page. Offering an alternative viewpoint respectfully is crucial in discussions. The phrase, may I offer a different perspective? Allows you to suggest a new idea without dismissing other suggestions. For example, if you think there's a better approach to solving a problem, you might say, may I offer a different perspective? What if we tried this approach instead? This encourages open dialogue and the consideration of various viewpoints. Showing appreciation for others' contributions strengthens professional relationships. A phrase like, "Thank you for your support on this," acknowledges a colleague's effort and expresses gratitude. For instance, after completing a challenging project with a team, you might say, "Thank you for your support on this. Your help was invaluable." This boosts morale and encourages a collaborative work environment. When you need to express a differing opinion, the phrase, "I see where you're coming from, but," allows you to acknowledge the other person's viewpoint while presenting your own. For example, if a proposed change might affect the project timeline, you could say, "I see where you're coming from, but I'm concerned that this might delay our schedule. Could we consider an alternative?" This approach shows respect for their opinion while advocating for what you believe is best. Setting clear expectations from the beginning helps prevent misunderstandings. The phrase, "to set clear expectations," is useful for outlining what is required. For example, if you're leading a project and need to establish deadlines, you might say, "To set clear expectations, I need everyone to submit their progress reports by Friday." This ensures that all team members are aware of their responsibilities and deadlines. Requesting updates on the progress of tasks is a common part of project management. The phrase, "Could you provide me with an update?" is a direct yet polite way to check on the status. For example, if you're waiting on a deliverable, you might say, "Could you provide me with an update on the status of the client presentation? We're getting close to the deadline." This keeps you informed and helps you manage your project effectively. Explaining the rationale behind decisions helps others understand your thought process. The phrase, "The reason for this decision is," allows you to provide context. For example, if you decide to extend a deadline, you might say, "The reason for this decision is that we've encountered unexpected challenges that require additional time to address." This transparency helps build trust and ensures that everyone understands the basis for your decisions. Taking responsibility for mistakes is a sign of professionalism. The phrase, "I take full responsibility," is an effective way to acknowledge errors and demonstrate accountability. For example, if a mistake leads to a delay, you might say, "I take full responsibility for the delay and will ensure that it doesn't happen again." This kind of accountability is respected and helps maintain your credibility in the workplace. When seeking approval for actions or decisions, it's important to phrase your request politely. The phrase, "Would it be possible to get your approval on this?" is a respectful way to ask for confirmation. For example, if you've prepared a budget proposal and need it to move forward, you might say, "Would it be possible to get your approval on this budget proposal? I'd like to proceed with the next steps." This ensures you follow proper procedures while moving projects along. Suggesting a course of action with confidence helps in guiding discussions. The phrase, "I recommend that we," is a strong way to propose an idea. For example, if you're discussing strategies for a marketing campaign, you might say, "I recommend that we focus on social media advertising to reach a broader audience." This shows that you've thought through the suggestion and are prepared to take the lead. Summarizing discussions or meetings helps ensure that everyone is clear on what's been decided. The phrase, "Let's recap what we've discussed," is useful for this purpose. For example, at the end of a team meeting, you might say, "Let's recap what we've discussed. We've agreed on the project goals, assigned tasks, and scheduled our next check-in for Monday." This reinforces key points and confirms next steps. When introducing new ideas, the phrase, "I'd like to propose," is effective for presenting suggestions. It indicates that you have a well-considered idea that you want others to consider. For example, if you have a new strategy for improving team productivity, you might say, "I'd like to propose a new workflow to streamline our processes and enhance efficiency." This sets the stage for a constructive discussion about your proposal. Addressing concerns or issues requires a thoughtful approach. The phrase, I'd like to discuss a concern I have, allows you to bring up potential problems in a non-confrontational manner. For example, if you're worried about a project's progress, you might say, I'd like to discuss a concern I have regarding the project timeline. Are we on track to meet the deadline? This shows that you're proactive about addressing issues and seeking solutions. When offering assistance or support, a helpful phrase is, how can I assist you with this? This shows a willingness to help and can foster a collaborative environment. For example, if a colleague is struggling with a task, you might say, how can I assist you with this? I'd be happy to help if you need it. This reinforces teamwork and demonstrates your support for your colleagues. When discussing potential changes or improvements, the phrase, it might be beneficial to consider, is a constructive way to suggest alternatives. For example, if you believe a different approach could enhance a project, you might say, it might be beneficial to consider implementing a new software tool to improve our workflow. This phrase introduces new ideas while showing that you're thinking about what's best for the project. If you need to confirm understanding or agreement, the phrase, are we all on the same page? Is effective. For example, if you've discussed a plan and want to ensure everyone is clear, you might ask, are we all on the same page regarding the project milestones and deadlines? This helps ensure that there's no confusion and that everyone is aligned with the objectives. Addressing changes in priorities can be challenging, but the phrase, given the new information, it seems we should, helps communicate necessary adjustments. For example, if a new client requirement affects the project scope, you might say, given the new information, it seems we should adjust our project plan to accommodate the changes. This shows that you're adaptable and responsive to new developments. When you need to follow up on a previous conversation, the phrase, I wanted to follow up on, helps keep the discussion ongoing. For example, if you've discussed a proposal and haven't received feedback, you might say, I wanted to follow up on the proposal I sent last week. Have you had a chance to review it? This keeps the communication channel open and ensures that important matters are addressed. If you're assigning tasks and want to be specific, the phrase, please ensure that you, is useful. For example, if you need a report completed by a certain date, you might say, please ensure that you submit the report by Friday so we can review it before the meeting. This clear instruction helps prevent misunderstandings and ensures tasks are completed on time. When addressing potential conflicts or issues, the phrase, I think we might have a discrepancy here, helps bring up concerns diplomatically. For example, if there's a disagreement about project details, you might say, I think we might have a discrepancy here regarding the project requirements. Can we review this together to clarify? This approach fosters collaboration and problem solving. When discussing potential risks, the phrase, one potential risk is, helps identify and address concerns. For example, if you're planning a new initiative and foresee potential challenges, you might say, one potential risk is the tight timeline for implementation. How can we mitigate this risk? This demonstrates foresight and proactive planning, which are valuable in risk management. To confirm the status of ongoing work, you can use the phrase, can you give me an update on? For example, if you need to check on the progress of a marketing campaign, you might ask, can you give me an update on the status of the marketing campaign? I'd like to know where we stand. This helps you stay informed and make necessary adjustments. In situations where you need to express urgency, the phrase, this is time-sensitive and needs immediate attention, communicates the importance of prompt action. For example, if a critical client issue arises, you might say, this is time-sensitive and needs immediate attention to prevent further complications. This ensures that the urgency of the matter is understood and addressed promptly. When providing instructions or guidelines, the phrase, please follow these guidelines, helps ensure that procedures are clear. For example, if you're outlining steps for a new process, you might say, please follow these guidelines to complete the onboarding process. Review the materials, complete the forms, and schedule a meeting with HR. This clarity helps ensure compliance and consistency. To request feedback on a project or task, you might use the phrase, "I'd appreciate your feedback on." For example, if you've completed a draft report and want input, you could say, "I'd appreciate your feedback on the draft report before we finalize it. Are there any changes you'd recommend?" This invites constructive criticism and helps improve the quality of your work. When clarifying roles or responsibilities, the phrase, "To clarify responsibilities, name, will," helps outline who is responsible for what. For example, if you're assigning tasks for a project, you might say, "To clarify responsibilities, John will handle the client communications, while Sarah will manage the project timeline." This ensures everyone knows their duties and reduces the chance of overlap or confusion. In meetings, summarizing key points can be crucial. The phrase, "To summarize our discussion," helps consolidate information. For example, after a team meeting, you might say, "To summarize our discussion, we've decided on the project scope, assigned tasks, and set a deadline for next Friday." This helps everyone remember the key takeaways and next steps. When expressing appreciation for someone's hard work, a phrase like, "Your effort on this project is greatly appreciated," can be very effective. For example, after a successful project completion, you might say, "Your effort on this project is greatly appreciated. It made a significant difference in our outcome." This acknowledgement helps boost morale and reinforces a positive work environment. If you need to address a mistake or oversight, the phrase, "There was an oversight in," helps pinpoint issues constructively. For example, if a report contained errors, you might say, "There was an oversight in the data analysis section. I'll correct this and ensure it's accurate." This approach addresses the issue directly while focusing on resolution. When coordinating with other departments, the phrase, "We need to coordinate with department to," helps facilitate interdepartmental communication. For example, if you're working on a project that requires input from another team, you might say, "We need to coordinate with the IT department to ensure our systems are aligned with the new software." This ensures that all necessary parties are involved and informed. For discussing potential improvements, the phrase, "It might be helpful to explore," encourages consideration of new ideas. For example, if you think a process could be improved, you might say, "It might be helpful to explore some new software options to streamline our workflow." This promotes innovation and continuous improvement in the workplace. When providing feedback on someone's work, a phrase like, "I'd like to provide some feedback on," helps frame your input constructively. For example, if a colleague's report needs revisions, you might say, "I'd like to provide some feedback on the report. There are a few areas that could be more detailed." This approach ensures that your feedback is received as intended and helps guide improvements. To address conflicting ideas, the phrase, "Let's discuss our different viewpoints on," facilitates open dialogue. For example, if team members have differing opinions on a project strategy, you might say, "Let's discuss our different viewpoints on the marketing strategy to find the best approach." This encourages collaborative problem-solving and helps find common ground. When requesting a meeting or discussion, the phrase, "Could we schedule a time to discuss?" is polite and effective. For example, if you need to address an issue with a colleague, you might say, "Could we schedule a time to discuss the project timeline? I'd like to review our progress and next steps." This shows consideration for the other person's time while addressing important topics. If you need to verify details, the phrase, "Can you confirm whether?" helps ensure accuracy. For example, if you're finalizing a contract and need confirmation, you might ask, "Can you confirm whether the contract terms have been reviewed and approved?" This helps prevent errors and ensures that all details are correct before moving forward. When offering to help with a task, the phrase, "If you need any assistance, please let me know," is supportive and open. For example, if a colleague is struggling with a report, You might say, "If you need any assistance, please let me know. I'd be happy to help with the data analysis." This shows that you're approachable and willing to contribute to the team's success. Addressing changes in project scope requires careful communication. The phrase, "Given the new requirements, we should," helps articulate necessary adjustments. For example, if additional features are requested for a project, you might say, "Given the new requirements, we should update the project plan to accommodate these changes." This helps ensure that everyone is aware of the updated expectations. For discussing future plans, the phrase, "Looking ahead, we should consider," helps outline potential actions. For example, if you're planning for the next quarter, you might say, "Looking ahead, we should consider expanding our market research to better understand emerging trends." This encourages forward thinking and strategic planning. When summarizing a project's progress, the phrase, "Here's a summary of where we stand," provides a clear overview. For example, if you're updating stakeholders on a project, you might say, "Here's a summary of where we stand. We've completed 75% of the tasks, and we're on track to meet the deadline." This keeps everyone informed about the current status and next steps. If you need to address an issue with a process, the phrase, "We've encountered a challenge with," helps bring up concerns. For example, if a new system isn't working as expected, you might say, "We've encountered a challenge with the new software integration. I'll work on resolving this issue." This shows that you're proactive about identifying and addressing problems. When seeking input on a decision, the phrase, "I'd like to get your thoughts on," is a good way to invite feedback. For example, if you're deciding on a new marketing strategy, you might say, "I'd like to get your thoughts on this strategy before we finalize our approach." This ensures that you're considering multiple perspectives and making informed decisions. To confirm understanding of complex information, the phrase, "Just to ensure we're clear on," helps verify details. For example, if you're explaining a new process, you might say, "Just to ensure we're clear on the new procedure, please review the attached document and let me know if you have any questions." This helps prevent misunderstandings and ensures everyone is on the same page. When setting deadlines, the phrase, "The deadline for this is," helps communicate time frames clearly. For example, if you need a report by a specific date, you might say, "The deadline for this report is next Tuesday. Please ensure it's completed by then." This ensures that deadlines are understood and met, facilitating smooth project management. To offer a constructive critique, the phrase, "One area for improvement might be," helps provide feedback thoughtfully. For example, if a presentation could be clearer, you might say, "One area for improvement might be the visual aids. They could be more engaging to better convey the message." This approach helps address areas for improvement while being constructive and respectful. When discussing the impact of decisions, the phrase, "The impact of this decision is," helps articulate consequences. For example, if a budget cut affects a project, you might say, "The impact of this decision is that we'll need to adjust our project scope to stay within the new budget." This helps clarify how decisions affect various aspects of the work. When asking for a review or approval, the phrase, "Could you review this and provide your approval?" is straightforward and respectful. For example, if you've completed a report that needs sign-off, you might say, "Could you review this report and provide your approval before we distribute it?" This ensures that necessary approvals are obtained. To address concerns about project resources, the phrase, "We need to assess our resource allocation," helps identify potential issues. For example, if you're concerned about budget constraints, you might say, "We need to assess our resource allocation to ensure we have the necessary funds for the remaining project phases." This helps in managing resources effectively. If you need to highlight an issue in a project, the phrase, "There's a critical issue with," helps draw attention to important problems. For example, if there's a major issue affecting deliverables, you might say, there's a critical issue with the software integration that needs immediate attention. This approach ensures that urgent matters are prioritized. When providing updates on tasks, the phrase, "Here's the latest update on," helps keep everyone informed. For example, if you're reporting on the progress of a task, you might say, "Here's the latest update on the marketing campaign. We've completed the initial phase and are preparing for the next steps." This ensures that stakeholders are kept up to date. When requesting additional resources, the phrase, "We may need additional resources to," helps justify the need. For example, if a project requires more staff, you might say, "We may need additional resources to complete this project on time and maintain quality." This helps in making a case for extra support. If you need to address a conflict, the phrase, "We need to resolve this conflict by," helps set a clear resolution path. For example, if there's a disagreement about project responsibilities, you might say, "We need to resolve this conflict by clarifying roles and responsibilities to avoid further misunderstandings." This ensures that conflicts are addressed constructively. To set meeting objectives, the phrase, "The main objectives of this meeting are," helps focus the discussion. For example, if you're planning a team meeting, you might say, "The main objectives of this meeting are to review the project status, discuss upcoming deadlines, and address any issues." This helps keep the meeting on track and productive. When discussing changes in a project's scope, the phrase, "Due to the change in scope," helps explain adjustments. For example, if additional work is required, you might say, "Due to the change in scope, we'll need to extend the timeline and adjust our budget." This helps communicate the impact of scope changes clearly. If you need to address a performance issue, the phrase, "I'd like to talk about your recent performance," helps initiate a constructive conversation. For example, if a team member's performance needs improvement, you might say, "I'd like to talk about your recent performance and explore ways to enhance your contributions." This approach fosters a positive dialogue. When organizing a project, the phrase, "We should develop a detailed plan for," helps outline necessary steps. For example, if you're starting a new project, you might say, "We should develop a detailed plan for the product launch, including timelines, responsibilities, and budget." This ensures that all aspects of the project are well organized. To request input on a strategy, the phrase, "I'd value your input on," helps seek advice. For example, if you're developing a marketing strategy, you might say, "I'd value your input on the proposed marketing strategy to ensure we're covering all key areas." This encourages collaborative input and enhances decision-making. If you need to provide a summary of a meeting, the phrase, "Here's a summary of today's meeting," helps recap key points. For example, after a team meeting, you might say, "Here's a summary of today's meeting. We discussed the project milestones, assigned tasks, and set a deadline for the next phase." This ensures that everyone is clear on what was discussed and agreed upon. When addressing project delays, the phrase, "We're experiencing a delay due to," helps explain the situation. For example, if there's a delay in receiving materials, you might say, "We're experiencing a delay due to supplier issues, which may impact our project timeline." This helps communicate the reasons for delays and their potential impact. To discuss resource needs, the phrase, "We need to evaluate our resource needs for," helps assess requirements. For example, if you're planning a new initiative, you might say, "We need to evaluate our resource needs for the upcoming project to ensure we have the necessary support." This helps in planning and allocating resources effectively. When clarifying a task, the phrase, "To clarify, the task is to," helps ensure understanding. For example, if there's confusion about a task, you might say, "To clarify, the task is to prepare the marketing materials for the product launch, including brochures and social media content." This ensures that everyone understands their responsibilities. If you need to address a project issue, the phrase, "We need to address the issue with," helps focus on specific problems. For example, if there's an issue with project timelines, you might say, "We need to address the issue with the project timeline and adjust our schedule accordingly." This helps in resolving problems effectively. When providing project feedback, the phrase, "My feedback on the project is," helps convey input. For example, if you're reviewing a project proposal, you might say, "My feedback on the project is that we need to refine the scope and include more detailed milestones." This provides clear and actionable feedback. To summarize, using these phrases helps communicate effectively in a variety of work situations. They assist in setting expectations, addressing issues, and providing clear instructions, all of which are essential for successful workplace communication.